Okay, sometimes when you answer these questions, having specific examples in front of you is really, really useful. And sometimes having examples which are different to the ones that are given in the question are equally as valuable. So the idea is we've got these two arrays, word and pre. So word and pre. Now I'm going to take an example where the pre is a prefix to the word. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is, and rather than use arrays, I'm just going to, for the purpose of doing this, rather than keep writing this out with quotes and things like that, I'm just going to write the word as a string, because as we've seen in part of the question, strings and character arrays work very, very similarly. So let's say this word is manual, the word manual, and I've chosen that because it's got the word man in there. So I'm going to have pre as the word man. Okay. Now, one of the things that it says is that it shouldn't matter which way around those are. So let's just pretend, for instance, that the word could be man and the pre would be manual. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Now, we can see that this is definitely a prefix of this. Okay, man is a prefix of manual. So this sort of works. It says this should be true, right? It should return true. The function, the purpose of the function would return true. But this way, manual, this whole word does not appear in here. Because, first of all, this is longer. This is longer than the word itself. So it will never work if the length of pre is longer than the length of the word. Okay? So no, this won't work. Okay? So we need to test that. We're going to say if the length, we could just use length, the length of the pre is greater than the length of the word, then it simply isn't going to work. It will never work. So we're going to return false. In other words, this will never be a pre of the word. Okay, now let's deal now with the case that we are doing it the proper way around. Okay, so now we're dealing with this case here. We're going to test to see whether this is going to work or not. So basically what I need to do is I need to go through each character in pre, and I'm going to determine whether or not it's the same character here over here. So M is M, A is A, and N is N. And it's got to work for the whole of these, all of these here. Okay? Every single one. If it fails on any of these, in other words, if this word here was, let's say not manual, but madual, then this would fail straight away. This would be return false because this N isn't the same as the D here. Okay? So that's basically what we're going to do. So in other words, we want to go through each character in here, in the pre, and determine whether each character matches the same character position in the word. So I'm going to say for I goes in the range 1 to the length of the word pre. So in other words, in this case, it's going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to go through each character inside here, and it's going to try to see whether or not the equivalent position is the same. Okay, so we're going to say if pre-I, so pre-I, so I is starting 1, we're looking at basically this character here, this M, and we want to say, is it the same as, so this is equal to, remember in pseudocode equals is comparison, double equals in Python, word. I, then we're fine. Everything's fine. Okay. But if it isn't equal to, so if it's not equal to, then we're going to simply straight away return, oh, let's do return in capitals like we did before. Return false. Okay, so in other words, if this M doesn't match with this M here, or the A doesn't match with the A, or the N doesn't match with the N, then we're going to return false straight away. Now, if we've looked at every single character inside this pre-thing and mapped it onto the starting letters in the word, if we manage to finish all of those and we haven't returned false, then we know we have success. So after the for loop, after we've gone through everything, we're going to return false. Return true, because we know at that point we've tested every single possibility. We haven't got a false, so we're going to return true. Okay, so let's go through that again. So if the length of the pre is greater than the length of the word, then we're going to return false. That's not going to work. Otherwise, we're going to go through each letter inside the pre and try and map it onto the word over here. So if I took something that's not going to work, like the word is, let's say coffee, and the pre is comb, then what's going to happen is, let's make that a capital C, the same as this, a capital C. It's going to go through each character in here and try and map it. So the first time around, when I is 1, this will be successful. So this will not be triggered, this return false. So we're still hopefully going to be returning true. Then we look at the O, and that matches, so we're still okay. And then we look at the M, and then suddenly that doesn't match with the F. So in this case, this will end up being true because they're not equal, and then we return false from the subroutine. So hopefully that's okay. Let's see if we can figure out how to do a diagram for that. Okay, I think sometimes the diagrams can be more difficult. Some of you may find the diagrams easier, some of you not. The great thing about a diagram, this is 9 marks, right? The great thing about the diagram is that we might be able to get allocated marks very quickly. So we're going to begin with a start. Let's do it slightly higher, might need a bit more space. So we're going to start here, and we can't do a subroutine really. You can actually, but you're not going to be requested to do that. So we're just looking at the inside of the subroutine. Okay, so we're looking at understanding what word and pre are. So in this case, we're looking at, we could just get a process that says word is assigned from some user input, and pre is assigned from some user input. Now, they're not going to be user inputs in terms of the function, but they would be down here. So in other words, when we call this subroutine, for example, prefix and the word being manual and the pre being man, although they would be listed as lists, but I'm not going to do that. So that's where the user inputs would come in. Okay, in other words, we've got to get word and pre in there somewhere. Right, now we've got an if statement now. So the if statement, of course, is always a diamond. That's a decision. So let's draw a decision here, and it says is the length of pre greater than the length of word? Question mark. Well, if it is, then we're going to return false, because that's what this is here. And then we're going to end up finishing. Okay, but if no, then we're coming on to this else bit here. So what we need to do is to now sort out a for loop. So we can't really do a for loop directly in a diagram. So instead, what we have to do is a little bit like a while loop, if you like. So notice that I is starting at 1. So we need to set I to be 1. Okay. And then once we set I to be 1, we need to figure out whether I is too big. So is I less than the length, or less than or equal to, sorry, the length of pre? If it is, then we're going to go back round again. So if it is, then we're going to do this stuff down here. So we're going to now do a test to see whether or not the characters map. Is pre I not equal to word I? Pre is small letters here, sorry. Pre I not equal to word I. And if it isn't, if it's no, we return false. So if no, we're going to return false and then end. If it's yes, then what do? We need to increase the value of I to do the next one. So in that case, we're going to increase I. So I becomes equal to I plus 1. And then we're going to go back up here and retest again. Okay. So is length of I less than or equal to pre? Yes. But no, if no, then we've basically finished all this stuff. So we're going around doing the testing. If the length of I is not less than no, so that which is basically out of here, then we're going to return true. And then end. So let's just check that. I may have made a mistake here. Let's see. If the length is pre is greater than word, then we return false and end. That seems fine. No, then we're coming in here. We're going to set I to be 1, and then we're going to check is I less than the length of the word. If it is, then we're going to check to see whether the pre is not equal to word. If it's not equal to, then we should return false at this. This is the wrong way around. So this is yes, and this is no. That's better. Okay. Something like that. I think you would agree the diagram is actually far more difficult because you have to be able to map a for loop into a diagram. It might be worth us actually just really quickly, having another example of that. Let's do something really simple. So this would come under map a for loop as a flowchart. Let's take a really simple example of that. So let's say for I in range 1 to n plus 1, this is Python, print n. So what this would do in Python would, I would start at 1, so it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to whatever n was, or n plus 1 was, but 1 less than this, so n. So if n was 10, this would print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so let's do that as a flowchart. So that would look like this. Well, we need a start. And then we need to figure out what our n is. So let's say n is possibly some user input. So that determines what n is, maybe 10 or whatever it is. But also, notice what we're going to start I off. I is going to start off at this value here, 1. So I is going to begin at 1. We'll do this. And then we want to test to see whether this loop has finished yet. So is I less than or equal to n? If it is, then we're doing our loop. Yes, and we're going to print or output, I should say, because we don't have print in pseudocode. We're going to output our value of n. Outputs look like that, remember. And then what we're going to do is go back round, increase I, so I is I plus 1, and then go around and make this check again. So this basically makes I go print the value of I, 1, increase I to 2, back round, is I still less than, let's say, 10? Yes, it is. Output it, go round, increase it 3, increase it 4. But if not, then we're going to end. So that's a really sort of simple, that's pretty much one of the simplest for loops, and how you map that onto a flowchart. A very useful exercise for you to follow.